A beat by itself is nothing without an artist on it. Do you hear that? As a producer, do you hear that? Because I've heard that many times. Matter of fact, remember when this rapper said this?
Lame man, that beat wasn't shit till I rapped on it, nigga. If anybody else would have rapped on that beat, it wouldn't have been shit.
And remember when this rapper said this?
You don't do as much as an artist. All you do is make the sound. You make a good beat, yes, but you can give this beat to 10 people. They're not going to make the same song.
Now, I have what I believe is proof that this isn't true, number one, and number two, that beats can matter more than the artists on them sometimes. Now, I'm not saying that because I want to beef with recording artists. I'm sick of hearing that one part of the equation is more important than the other. Look, sometimes the artist is better than the beat. Sometimes the beat is bigger than the artist. Sometimes it's 50-50. Almost all the time it's subjective. I just want people to treat each other fairly and not use this as a reason to stab their collaborators in the back. Drop a comment if you think there's a situation where the beat was better than the rapper, or where the rapper turned a terrible beat into a hit, but it's going to be subjective. I'm curious. I want to hear what some of your ideas are. The link to our podcast channel is below. Appreciate you tuning into that. Thank you so much. There have been traditionally, especially in hip hop, there have been these long-standing producer rapper duos. And I'm not just talking about, something obvious like Gangstar, where that's a group situation, but I'm talking about like the big one that inspired this thought from me is Pierre Bourne and Playboi Carti, where they're not in a group, but everyone just associated them with each other because they came up together. And now it's to the point where mainstream as you can get on the internet, publications are covering the lack of collaboration between the two of them. And they've been doing that for years. So I'm like, damn, this is an interesting cultural shift where people care which producers, the masses care which producers artists are collaborating with, and they're wondering why, and to the point where they're criticizing an artist when they exclude them from a project, or they perceive that they're excluding them from the project. Just to show you what I mean, seeing a lot of news, and like Bars has 2.3 million followers, so they're a bigger platform, and you see a lot of conversations like this. This is 27 weeks ago. There is another, there are multiple, this is a year ago, long ass threads about, whether or not Pierre and Carti are going to reunite. And I saw a whole long ass, one of those dumbass videos on YouTube where it's, a faceless channel, and it's just some nerdy dude talking extensively about what could have happened between the rapper and the producer when there was a split in production. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. But it's cool that this conversation is happening. I think just because it shows people care about producers. And is the producer-rapper relationship as important as the group dynamic, do you think? It very rarely do you see in hip-hop successful groups split apart and then those solo artists find success. So is that similar when a producer who came up with a rapper stopped working together?
I think it is a lot of times. It really just depends on, if the rapper can actually emote or like change their sound. I won't even say rappers, because I think about someone like Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas. I feel like if Phineas were to leave, or like they were to stop working together, she would just be cooked as big as she is. You know what I'm saying? I think about Taylor Swift and Jack Antonoff. Like, if they don't work together, does Taylor Swift, and he's worked with her since she changed over to pop, but I don't know if she has a consistent trend. I think about like Paramore and JMJ. Like, they started working with him when they got out of the punk scene. I don't know if they would be able to like be successful in the way, because I still love when Paramore drops a record every 2 to 3 years now. I do not enjoy Hayley Williams' music solo, and I would love to enjoy Hayley Williams' music solo. And it makes me wonder if it's the producer. So I personally think, yeah, in a lot of these dynamic duos, I think if you're able to change your sound, or if there's a lot of people who are emulating the sound of that producer, like if they son somebody, yes, maybe. But then I think about Drake and 40, they don't really work together. And Drake has continued to Well, at least I feel like they work together way less. Maybe I'm misinformed, but I feel like Drake has continued to ascend until Kendrick did I don't know if it's a kill shot yet because we yet to be seen. I'm starting to see a lot more of my friends posting Drake songs and Drake verses in the background now. So I think Drake may be making his comeback, but I know for the most part, I think that a good duo matters, whether you're an artist or a group or a producer, just because the dynamic of community focused on the intention of making some great art together is not something that can be just relegated to, oh, they're a producer. That's chemistry, that's work ethic, that's intention. There's so much that goes into making things work well. I'm celebrating this week of the 5 years with my business partner Brandon. Our company turned five on the 20th, and it's like we've iterated in multiple directions. I can't just relegate him to we do business together. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like there's so much more of my life that's been enhanced and changed, and I'm sure for his way too. So it's like, yeah, having another human in it with you, there's no substitute for that. So I think I would be remiss to say like, oh yeah, you can just sub them out. I don't really think you can. I think there's always going to be a dip or a trajectory change when somebody as dynamic as that moves out, even if you continue to be successful. You never know what it could have been.
Sorry, with regards to the Drake thing, it does look like, and I'm not the biggest informational repository when it comes to Drake albums, but the last album he did was For the Dogs. That was his last official studio album, and 40 was all over it. So, and I still feel like 40 has taken an executive role or maintained an executive role. I know they brought in, shout out to Alex Lustig. I know Boy Wonder's still present on all these tracks. So I think I'm glad you brought Drake up because the people who were present, at least the main players with regard to production who were present his first album are still present. Before Drake was signed, before anyone knew who Drake was, it was him and Boy Wonder, and I'm pretty sure him and 40 are like friends. I'm sure they're all friends, but it's now that I'm looking and thinking and putting it all into perspective, it's refreshing that he's able to still branch out, bring on new people, work with Benny X, work with Cash Cobain on this project, work with Conductor Williams, but maintain the relationships with the 40s and the Boy Wonders. So does that contribute to his consistency in sound? Even because Drake has a consistent sound in spite of him jumping all over the place, So I think that's probably part of it, keeping those relationships.
Yeah, I think that, when you work with somebody for so long, like these producers are doing more than just producing the beats, I'm assuming, right? In a lot of cases, like they really learn this person and can probably at a comfort level where they can give them more authentic feedback. They know which times of the day they work best. They probably know like if they're under stress or when they need to tap in, when they need to tap out. Like there's much more of a relationship and a partnership there that it becomes probably more difficult for it to be plug and play. You just plug in another producer. It's a totally different atmosphere. So I can understand, but I don't think the artist is always understanding like how important that person is. Right?
No, we see that in those conversations when a rapper starts, when you get mad at someone and start cussing them out, all that shit you say, I didn't
I
mean that.
could
Yes,
I
the
could
fuck
get
you
a beat from anybody and make it a hit. It's
Yeah.
like,
That's
bro.
or like this beat wasn't shit without me. Okay, why did you pick that beat then? That was a bad choice. But it's just one of those things where like, I don't know what kind of relationships the two of you have been in. I've been in some toxic relationships. I remember one where this woman cussed me out so bad. It was like a paragraph in my phone. It was all one. She didn't separate them. And I'm reading through it like, damn, this is mean. But it was like, oh, you meant that shit. And then, the calls started and the text, I didn't answer any of them because I'm stubborn. But Eventually it was like, I said a lot. I was mad. I didn't mean that. I'm like, yeah, you did. You wouldn't have come up with that if you didn't mean it. So when a rapper says that beat wasn't shit without me, how they've always felt. And whether or not it's true, it could be. Honestly, some beats aren't great, some producers aren't great, but it's probably not when you're talking about some situation we've heard of, because we're talking about artists who have hit songs with these producers. So could you have created the same song without that beat? No. So why are you using that as an insult?
They don't realize the role that these people are really playing. These producers might eventually been like a borderline therapist, a borderline assistant. Like they become much more than, just somebody that you collaborate with. They probably did a lot of the songwriting, but they did it in a way that made it think that it was you. Like they didn't like take credit for it, but they did it in a way that in order for you to receive it, you had to think it was you. So you don't credit them for these other roles that they're playing. So
other things to consider, just to close things up. Are you familiar with the Diwali rhythm? It's a dancehall instrumental. You are familiar with it. You just don't know it.
I think you brought it up before.
Yeah, because it's probably the greatest beat of all time, honestly, just because so many massive hits have been created from it. Feel free to argue with me in the comments.
That part of the lawsuit that we talked about last year or something?
No, it was produced by Lenky. It was the probably the most famous version of it is Sean Paul, Get Busy, but also there's Wayne Wonder's version, No Letting Go. There's Lumi D's version, Nicki Minaj sampled it. It's just an iconic track. And there were plenty of other versions that were also either hits or minor hits. But there's also, are you familiar with the Twista song, Wetter, produced by legendary Trackster, one of the most amazing and underrated producers of all time? Aaron, you probably know about this. Do you know that, I hate saying his name, but it's this Morgan Wallen mashup. It's a new line dance that everyone's doing. And it's
Dangerous.
Dangerous. It's to that beat. I know. It's to that beat. Prior to that, who else did a version of that beat that was massively successful? Beyonce. Cuff It, Wetter remix. So that beat has gone viral 3 times. Initially as the original version, then the Beyonce version, then the Racist 2 that everyone has seemed to have forgiven now, that version. And
I think so many people on TikTok don't even know who is on that, and they don't know Morgan Wallen, but I can't stand it. We almost, at my parties, folks be requesting it, and I literally would be like, no, he's a racist. Like, I say that from stage.
And
no,
people are like,
we can do any line dance, but we are not doing that shit. Not at no black party? Hell no. That man literally be on his front yard getting drunk, screaming the N-word. Absolutely not.
That's the only type of party they black people are very forgiving. I'll say that. That being said, though,
we are too forgiving. F these folks.
Well, you saw that screenshot I sent you. Anyway, so beats matter. Beats matter. Not every beat is going to be a standalone classic beat, but it's funny to me when we get into these conversations, and as an insult, a recording artist will say, no beats aren't hit songs by themselves. I'm like, wait a minute. Clearly, there's something going on with these beats, because there are many beats that have become hits multiple times. Like Nuck If You Buck, shout out to Doc Jam. That was a hit beat on its own because it came back and became a hit a second time for an entirely new generation. There's something about that beat. So I don't want to hear that. The point of the conversation is not to say rappers are more important, beats are more important, producers are more important. The point is just shut the fuck up with trying to insult each other and find a way to work together respectfully and avoid scenarios in which you're going at each other's throats as collaborators in a creative field, because that doesn't help anybody. And specifically, when you very rarely hear the inverse of this, where producers are like, well, I could get anyone to rap on this beat and it would be a hit. You generally hear, and I'm not saying there aren't some asshole producers that say that, but you generally hear recording artists saying that to us to justify either mistreating us, cutting us out, or not paying us. So if you're a producer and you're watching this and you have one of those abusive folks in your life, just recognize that what they're saying is not true and don't play into the back and forth. Just Just walk away and listen to dance hall or something, and reset your brain by recognizing that there are multiple hits on the same track in certain genres. And I don't know how we've gotten to this point where we're just trying to degrade each other to further justify our exploitative behavior.